They say grief fades with time, but what if the grief is the only thing keeping you alive? The storm passed, but inside me, the thunder never stopped. Every shadow, every heartbeat still whispers his name. This isn't about what we had. It's about what I lost, and the echoes that never stopped chasing me. 'Tis strange how silence can become louder than sound. For months, I've lived inside that silence, counting the days, pretending they mean something. I thought that walking away from Ethan would make life easier, quieter. But time doesn't heal love. It just hides it under layers of routine until one small moment rips them apart again. It's been 9 months since I left him. 9 months since I closed the door on something too powerful to control. I told myself I was protecting both of us, protecting him from the whispers, from the rumors that would have destroyed his future, and protecting myself from the woman I was becoming with him. But every night the same thought returns. What if I made the biggest mistake of my life? My new house is small, simple, and filled with the kind of quiet that feels more like punishment than peace. I teach at a different college now, somewhere no one knows my past, no one asks about it, and I never volunteer the truth. My colleagues think I'm focused, disciplined, dedicated, but I'm just surviving. Every morning begins the same. Coffee, lectures, papers, silence. I've grown good at pretending, but at night, when the world goes still, I find myself staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment I swore I'd forget. His smile, his laugh, the way he said my name, slow, careful, reverent. The sound of it still haunts me. Sometimes I take out my phone and scroll through old messages, my finger hovering over his name. I've deleted his number more times than I can count, yet somehow it always finds its way back. I never type the words I want to say. I just stare at the blank screen, whispering into the darkness. I miss you. Then I lock the phone and force myself to breathe. This is what I chose: distance, silence, control. But control feels like a cage when the heart refuses to listen. The message came on an ordinary Tuesday. I was grading essays in the faculty lounge when my phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar, but something about it made my pulse quicken. I opened it, and my heart stopped. I got accepted. I'm leaving for New York next month. It was Ethan. I read the message again and again, as if the words might change. New York, the city where dreams either thrive or die. He was really going. He was moving on. I sat there frozen, the world spinning around me, students laughing in the hallway, papers rustling, life moving forward while I stayed trapped in that one moment. I typed and deleted a dozen replies. Everything I wrote sounded wrong, too cold or too desperate. Finally, I settled on 2 simple words. Congratulations, Ethan. They felt like a knife disguised as kindness. He didn't reply. Not that day, not the next. 3 days of silence followed, each one heavier than the last. I tried to convince myself it was better that way. He was starting a new life, and I was part of the one he needed to leave behind. But then came Friday evening, a stormy gray day that smelled like memory. I stayed late at work, trying to lose myself in papers and lesson plans. When I finally stepped outside, rain was pouring down, washing the campus in silver. I opened my umbrella and headed toward my car. And that's when I saw him. Even through the blur of rain, I knew it was him. The posture, the stillness, the way he leaned against the lamppost as if waiting for something more than just shelter. My breath caught. He looked older somehow, not in years, but in the weight he carried. His eyes met mine across the lot, and for a moment the world went silent. "Ethan," I whispered. He smiled faintly, rain dripping from his hair. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me," he said. "But I had to before I leave." My heart cracked open. "I got your message," I said, forcing calm. "Congratulations!" He stepped closer, the distance between us shrinking with each heartbeat. "That's all you're going to say?" he asked softly. "What else is there to say?" I replied, my voice trembling. He gave a hollow laugh. "I don't know. Maybe something real?" His words hit harder than I expected. I looked away, blinking through the rain. "I thought you moved on," I said. He shook his head slowly. "I tried," he whispered. "But every person I met after you felt like a shadow. I wanted to run, to turn away before my heart betrayed me again." "Ethan, please don't do this," I murmured. He stepped even closer, his eyes holding mine. I'm leaving next week, he said quietly. I just didn't want to go without saying goodbye. That word, goodbye, broke something inside me. We ended up in a small cafe down the street, the kind of place that always smelled like cinnamon and rain. We sat across from each other, two strangers pretending not to be broken. He ordered coffee for both of us. We talked about everything that didn't matter, his plans, my classes, the weather, anything to avoid the truth hovering between us. Then he said it. Do you ever think about us? The words hung in the air, heavy, dangerous. I looked down at the cup in my hands, watching the steam swirl like ghosts. Every day, I finally said. His eyes softened. Then why did you leave? I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. Because I loved you, I said. And love was the problem. He shook his head. No, Amelia. Fear was the problem. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he reached across the table, his hand brushing mine. Light, careful, electric. The contact sent a wave through me, every hidden feeling rising to the surface. I wanted to pull away, but I couldn't. My heart betrayed me with every beat. I can't do this, I whispered. You have a future ahead of you. Don't ruin it for me. He stood, eyes fierce but wounded. You think this is about ruining something? He said. You're the only thing that ever felt right. I closed my eyes, tears slipping free. Then let me be your mistake, I whispered. One you can forget. He looked at me for a long time, then said softly, You're not a mistake. You're the reason I became who I am. And with that, he walked out into the rain. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing his voice, the way he said, You're the reason. Around 2 a.m, something inside me broke. I grabbed my coat and keys and drove through the storm, headlights slicing through sheets of rain. I didn't know where I was going until I saw it. The old bridge, our bridge. The place where we once sat for hours talking about dreams, where he first told me he wanted to make something of himself. And there he was, standing at the edge, soaked to the bone, staring at the water below. I stopped the car, stepped out into the rain. Ethan, I called softly. He turned, surprise flickering across his face. You came, he said, almost smiling. I couldn't let you leave like that, I said. Not without... My voice faltered. He stepped closer. Not without what? He asked. I swallowed hard. Not without telling you that I never stopped loving you. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he reached me, and without another word, he kissed me. The world vanished. The rain, the thunder, everything but the two of us. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, aching, full of everything we had buried. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, I whispered, What now? He smiled faintly, rain dripping from his hair. Now we stop running, he said. His words wrapped around me like a promise and a curse. That night changed everything. For months, I thought love was something I could shut away, something forbidden that had to be buried. But standing there with him, I realized love doesn't disappear. It waits. It lingers in the quiet, in the distance, in the silence between heartbeats. And when it returns, it demands to be felt. But deep down, even as he held me, I knew the world wouldn't forgive easily. We had stepped back into something beautiful and dangerous. And whatever came next would test us both in ways we could never imagine. Unspoken words. The rain stopped before dawn, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than the storm. I sat by the window for hours, watching the first light of morning touch the soaked streets. Ethan's jacket still hung on my chair, damp and smelling faintly of rain and coffee. Every time I looked at it, my chest tightened. The night replayed in my head like a film I couldn't turn off. The bridge, the kiss, the way he said, Now we stop running. But what did that mean? Stop running from love? From guilt? From the world that never stopped watching? I wasn't sure. All I knew was that, for the first time in months, I felt alive. Terrified, but alive. By afternoon, my phone buzzed. A message from him. Meet me tonight. One last time before I go. There's something I need to tell you, my heart stuttered. One last time. Those words carried too much weight. I told myself I shouldn't go, that reopening old wounds would only destroy what little peace I had rebuilt. But peace without him had never been real. It was just a performance I gave to survive. At 8 p.m., I found myself driving to the same cafe where we'd last met. The world outside was quiet, washed clean by rain. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting at the corner table, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee gone cold. He looked tired, not in the way of sleepless nights, but in the way of someone carrying a secret too long. "Hey," I said softly. He looked up and smiled, that same small, hesitant smile that always undid me. "You came. I shouldn't have," I whispered. "I know, but you did." We sat in silence for a while. The cafe was nearly empty, the air filled with soft jazz and the faint hum of the espresso machine. It felt like time had paused just for us. Then he said it. The words that made the air vanish between us. "I turned down New York." I froze. "What?" "I'm not going," he said simply. "Not now." "Ethan," I breathed, "this was your dream." He nodded. "Maybe, but dreams change. You taught me that." My heart twisted. "Don't do this for me," I said. "Please." He looked at me, eyes steady, unreadable. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because of you. Because I can't build a life pretending you never existed." I didn't know what to say. For months, I'd convinced myself that distance was love, that letting him go was mercy. But hearing him speak, I realized how deep the wound ran. "Ethan," I whispered, "we can't go back." "Too much has happened." He leaned closer. "Then let's not go back. Let's start again." I wanted to believe him. To believe that love could be rewritten like a story we'd once abandoned. But reality didn't care about stories. It cared about consequences. "I'll lose everything," I said. He smiled faintly. "Then we'll lose it together." The simplicity of that broke me. Tears slipped down before I could stop them. "You don't understand what the world does to people like us," I whispered. "They don't forgive women my age. They turn us into villains." He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "Then let them. Let them talk. Let them hate. We'll live our truth anyway." His words were wild, reckless, beautiful. Everything I once was before the world made me careful. That night, I went home with his voice echoing in my head. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I kept asking myself the same question. What if love wasn't the sin they said it was? What if it was the only truth we ever had? The next morning, I called in sick. I didn't have the strength to face my students, to stand in front of a classroom pretending I still believed in control, in reason, in boundaries that never applied to the heart. Instead, I went for a walk through the park, our park. The air smelled like spring, clean and sharp. I sat on a bench watching the sunlight filter through the trees. Then I heard footsteps. And before I could even turn, I knew it was him. "You always find me," I said. He smiled. Maybe I never stopped looking. We didn't speak for a while. He just sat beside me, our shoulders almost touching. It was strange how silence between us felt like a language of its own. Finally, he said quietly, "My mother knows." My stomach tightened. "What?" "She found out, about us, about everything." I froze. "How?" "She saw the old messages, the photos, the emails." For a moment, the world went still. Then he said, "She's angry. She said I've ruined my future, that you used me." I looked down, my throat tightening. Maybe she's right. He turned to me sharply. "Don't say that." "She's his mother," I said softly. "Of course she's angry." He exhaled slowly. "She threatened to go to the college." My heart dropped. "Oh, God." "She won't," he added quickly. I stopped her. "But she wants me to cut all ties. For good." The park suddenly felt too open, too exposed. My hands trembled. "Ethan, this has to stop," I said, my voice barely audible. "If she goes to the board, she won't." "You don't know that." He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, desperation and defiance intertwined. "Then let her. I'm not afraid anymore, but I was. Terrified. Not of scandal, not of the world, but of what we were capable of losing." I stood up, backing away. "This isn't bravery, Ethan. It's destruction." He stood too. "Maybe. But at least it's honest." The fight that followed wasn't loud. It was quiet, full of words we didn't mean and truths we didn't want to say. I told him to leave. He told me he wouldn't. I told him I didn't love him anymore. He looked at me with eyes full of hurt and said, "Then why are you crying?" When he finally walked away, I collapsed onto the bench, the weight of everything pressing down. I didn't move for hours. That night, I sat in my room staring at my reflection. I didn't recognize the woman looking back, the one torn between love and fear, hope and guilt. The phone rang once, then again. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The next morning, a letter was slipped under my door. No name, no address, just my name written in his handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Amelia, if this is the end, I need you to know something. You didn't ruin me. You saved me. You showed me what real love feels like. I don't know what happens next, but I know I'll never forget you. Not in this life, not in any other. I pressed the letter to my chest, my tears falling silently. I didn't know if this was goodbye or a pause before something inevitable. All I knew was that somewhere between the rain, the silence, and the fear, love had become the most dangerous truth of all. The rain that changed everything. The rain came suddenly that evening, heavy, relentless, drumming against the glass of Amelia's small apartment. She sat by the window watching the water blur the lights of the street below. Her fingers traced the outline of the glass, lost in thought when her phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan. Are you okay? You seem distant today? For a moment, she didn't reply. She wasn't sure what to say. Distant? Yes. Torn? Absolutely. Every day with him brought her joy she hadn't felt in years, and guilt that grew heavier each night. She finally typed back, I'm fine, just tired. But even as she sent it, she knew he would see through the lie. Ethan had always seen her clearly, even when she tried to hide behind her walls. 10 minutes later, there was a knock on her door. When she opened it, Ethan stood there, drenched from the rain, his hair plastered to his forehead. He looked at her with that familiar mixture of concern and affection. I had to see you, he said quietly, his voice trembling slightly. You've been pulling away. Amelia's heart pounded. She wanted to tell him to go home, to stay away, to forget her. But instead, she stepped aside and let him in. The warmth of the apartment wrapped around them as he closed the door. For a while, neither spoke. The only sound was the steady rhythm of the rain outside. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. You think this is wrong? He said. I see it in your eyes every time you look at me. Amelia's breath caught. It's not about what I think, she whispered. It's about what the world will say. He moved closer, his voice barely above a whisper. Let them talk. I don't care. But she did. She cared about her reputation, her job, her life, all the things that would crumble if anyone found out. Yet in that moment, as his hand brushed hers, all logic vanished. The world outside ceased to exist. Lightning flashed, illuminating the room in a pale glow. They stood there, hearts beating in sync, time suspended between fear and longing. The rain grew louder, like applause from an unseen audience. And before she could think, before she could stop herself, Amelia closed the distance between them. Their lips met. It wasn't gentle or careful. It was desperate. Like two souls trying to hold on to something forbidden but irresistible. When they finally broke apart, breathless, the truth hung heavy between them. Nothing would ever be the same. I shouldn't have, she began, but Ethan stopped her with a shake of his head. Don't say that. You felt it too. You can't deny it anymore. Amelia turned away, tears mixing with the reflection of lightning on the glass. You don't understand what this could do to us, she said. He stepped closer again, his voice firm but pleading. Then let it. Let it break everything. Because whatever this is, it's real. That night the rain didn't stop, nor did the turmoil in Amelia's heart. As Ethan left, she stood by the window again, watching him disappear into the storm. She knew what they had done was dangerous, maybe even unforgivable. But deep inside, another truth whispered back. It was also the most alive she had ever felt. When she finally went to bed, sleep refused to come. The sound of the rain became a rhythm that echoed her thoughts, chaotic, unstoppable, and full of desire. Somewhere between guilt and longing, Amelia realized something terrifying. She was already too far gone to turn back, and as dawn broke, Painting the city in muted gray, one thing became clear. The rain hadn't just washed the streets clean. It had washed away every line she had drawn between right and wrong. Whispers in the hallway. The morning after the storm, the world felt quieter, but not peaceful. The sky was pale, washed out, as if the night's secrets had bled into dawn. Amelia stood in front of her bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection. Her eyes were tired, her lips still trembling from memories she wished she could forget. Every time she blinked, she saw him, Ethan, standing in the rain, saying those words she couldn't stop replaying. Then let it break everything. She splashed cold water on her face and whispered to herself, "It was a mistake. It has to be." But deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple. It had felt too real, too alive to call it a mistake. Still, she had to keep her composure. Today was Monday, and she had a class to teach. At school, everything seemed the same, yet different. The hallways buzzed with chatter and laughter, but to Amelia, every sound felt amplified. Every glance felt suspicious. She carried her books close to her chest, her heart pounding as if everyone could somehow see the guilt written on her face. Then she saw him, Ethan, sitting in the third row, just as always. But now, every time their eyes met, the air thickened. His smile was faint, almost invisible, but she caught it. It sent a wave of warmth through her chest and a rush of panic to her throat. She began the lecture, her voice steady, her mind far from the lesson. "Good literature," she said, trying to focus, "isn't just about the words, it's about what's left unsaid." Her own statement hit her like a confession. Ethan's eyes lingered on her, as if he understood exactly what she meant. Halfway through the class, the door creaked open. Mrs. Hall, one of the older teachers, slipped in with her usual nosy smile. "Sorry to interrupt," she said sweetly. "I just needed to drop off the assignment forms." Amelia nodded and took them, trying to appear calm. But she could feel Mrs. Hall's eyes scanning the room, then pausing on Ethan. And for a fraction of a second, Amelia swore the woman's gaze flicked back to her with quiet suspicion. After class, Ethan waited until the room was nearly empty. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. Amelia hesitated. "Not here," she whispered. "Someone might see." He nodded reluctantly, slipping out the side door. But someone did see. In the far corner of the hallway, Mrs. Hall stood by the window, pretending to sort papers, though her eyes never left them. That evening, Amelia's phone buzzed again. A message from Ethan. "I can't stop thinking about you." She stared at it for a long moment. Every instinct told her to delete it, to block him, to save them both before it was too late. But her heart, that foolish, aching heart, made her reply instead, "Neither can I." The next few days passed in a blur of stolen glances and unspoken words. During breaks, Ethan would linger by her classroom door, pretending to ask about assignments. Once, their hands brushed as she passed him a book, a brief electric contact that left her breathless. But the world around them was beginning to notice. Whispered conversations in the teacher's lounge, subtle glances from students who saw too much. Rumors, faint, shapeless, dangerous, started to crawl through the hallways. One afternoon, Principal Carter called Amelia into his office. "You've been distracted lately," he said, his tone polite but probing. "Is everything all right?" She forced a smile. "Just tired," she replied. "It's been a busy semester." He nodded slowly, watching her with quiet skepticism. When she left his office, her hands were trembling. She walked down the corridor, her mind spinning. She knew the line between them was thinning, not just emotionally, but publicly. That night, she met Ethan at the park, where the streetlights glowed softly against the dark. "People are starting to talk," she said, her voice shaking. Ethan frowned. "Let them." "I don't care what they think." Amelia turned to him, tears brimming in her eyes. "You don't understand, Ethan. You'll move on from this someday. But me? I'll lose everything. My career, my reputation, my life." He stepped closer, his hands trembling as they reached for hers. "And what about what we've already lost? You're the only one who makes me feel like I matter. You gave me something real." Her resolve broke again. "You're too young to understand what real costs," she whispered. But he only shook his head. "Then let me learn." For a moment, silence hung between them. Thick, heavy, full of unspoken love and impossible choices. When she finally walked away, she didn't look back. But Ethan did. He watched her silhouette fade into the night, the distance between them growing like an open wound. By the next morning, the whispers had grown louder. Someone had seen them in the park. A photo had surfaced, blurry, grainy, but real enough to spark gossip. And as Amelia entered the school building, she could feel it in the air, the shift, the tension, the judgment. Every step down that hallway felt heavier than the last. Every whisper behind her felt like a blade. The walls that once felt safe were closing in, and Amelia knew this wasn't just a secret anymore. It was a ticking time bomb, and somewhere deep inside she feared she already knew how it would end. The bridge that broke two hearts. The rain had been falling since morning, a slow, steady drizzle that matched the weight in my chest. The city outside my window looked like a watercolor painting bleeding into itself, blurred lights, gray skies, and too many memories floating in between. Ethan hadn't called in days. Every time my phone lit up, my heart leapt, only to fall again like a bird hitting glass. I told myself it was over, that what we had was wrong, that I had chosen the quiet safety of my old life over the storm he brought into it. But even lies start to sound like truth if you repeat them long enough. Tonight, though something inside me cracked, I found myself running through the empty streets, my umbrella forgotten, my heels splashing in puddles, as if some invisible string was pulling me toward him. The bridge, that's where we used to meet. That old steel bridge over the Hudson where he'd once said, "If the world ever turns against us, we'll meet here, or no matter what." It felt foolish, hopeless, but I went. The rain hit harder as I reached the bridge. Wind howled through the iron rails, carrying the scent of wet asphalt and heartbreak. And then I saw him. Ethan stood there, drenched, hands shoved in his pockets, staring into the dark river below. His hair was soaked, his shoulders shaking. For a moment I couldn't breathe. "Ethan," he turned. His eyes were red, not from rain, but from everything he'd been holding in. "You shouldn't have come, Amelia," he said softly. "They know." "Who?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Everyone. Your husband. The school. The entire damn town. Someone saw us. The world went silent around us. All I could hear was the sound of rain hitting the steel, like tears from the sky." He took a step closer. "I'm leaving tonight," he whispered. "I can't stay here. Not after this." I wanted to scream, to beg him not to go. But my words got lost somewhere between my throat and my heart. He reached out, and for the first time in weeks, his fingers brushed mine. It felt like the world stopped breathing. "You changed me," he said. "You taught me what love really means, even if it destroys us." Tears mixed with the rain on my face. "Then let it destroy me too," I whispered. He smiled, that small, broken smile that once melted every wall I'd built. And then, headlights. A black car stopped at the end of the bridge. Two figures stepped out. One of them, my husband. My heart froze. "Ethan, go!" I cried. "No," he said, standing his ground. "I won't run from this." The shouting started. The wind picked up. I remember flashes, my husband's voice, Ethan's anger, the glint of something metallic, and then a scream. My scream. The next thing I knew, Ethan was on the ground. Rain pooled around him, red mixing with the silver of the bridge lights. I fell beside him, my hands shaking, my voice breaking into pieces. "No, no, no, stay with me. Ethan, please!" He looked up at me one last time, eyes soft, almost peaceful. "You'll always be the best part of me." And then his hand slipped from mine, everything blurred. Sirens wailed in the distance. People gathered, but all I could see was him, still, silent, gone. I don't remember how long I stayed there. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. But when the police pulled me away, my body went cold, not from the rain, but from the hollow silence that followed. weeks later. They said it was an accident. They said I was a victim. But I knew better. Because every night since, when the rain starts to fall, I hear his voice on that bridge, calling my name through the wind. And sometimes, I see a shadow in the distance, standing where he used to. Maybe it's grief. Maybe it's guilt. Or maybe, just maybe, love doesn't die. It just changes form.